The cell signal vanished 10 miles back. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the wind whistling through the beat-up truck's door seal. Not the smell of damp pine and rot, but the disappearance of 3 little bars in the corner of the screen. I'd been staring at it for so long. The image was burned into my retina. Those 3 bars were the only line connecting me to the hospital, to the missed calls from Mark's mom, to the lie swelling like a tumor in my chest. Now it was severed. I felt relieved, and I was disgusted with myself for it. The Airbnb cabin was at the end of a dirt road I struggled to find at dusk. Secluded was an understatement. Forgotten was more like it. It was swallowed by a narrow valley, choked by towering Appalachian pines. They stood too close, trunks black, branches knitting together, forming a canopy that blocked almost all the remaining daylight. The cabin smelled of old wood, mildewed carpet, and something faintly rank. Maybe a small animal dead beneath the floorboards. I paid for 3 weeks. 3 weeks for no one to find me. 3 weeks for the phone not to ring. The first night passed in a tired haze. I fell asleep without even taking off my shoes, curled up on the outdated floral sofa. I dreamed. No images, only sounds. The grinding of metal, the crunch of shattering glass, and Mark's wet, ragged breathing. The breathing would stop, then start again with a hitch. I woke up while it was still dark. The second night, that's when I noticed the silence. Not a peaceful silence, an absolute, suffocating one. No crickets, no owls or night insects. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. There was only the rush of blood in my ears. The cabin felt like it was at the bottom of the ocean. I stood up, the cold of the wooden floor seeping into the soles of my feet. Something was wrong. An itching sensation ran down my spine, like static in the air. I went to the small kitchen. I wasn't hungry, but I needed to do something. I pulled a container of leftovers from the fridge. The chicken was cold, the fatty skin congealed into a white film. I tried to chew a bite. It tasted like ash. I spat it into the sink. I looked out the window. The floral curtain was drawn, but a small gap remained. Outside, it was pitch black. A thick, oppressive black. No stars, no moon. I felt like the trees had moved, crowding closer, pressing against the walls. I shivered, yanking the curtain shut. I was wiping my hands on my jeans when it happened. A dry pop. All the lights in the cabin died. My laptop on the dining table, charging, went dark. The refrigerator stopped humming. The room plunged into darkness. A darkness so thick I felt it like heavy velvet on my face. Damn it, I whispered. Just a power outage, a tripped breaker. I stood still, waiting for my eyes to adjust, but they didn't need to. The room wasn't completely dark. A strange light was seeping through the edges of the curtains. It wasn't the yellow of a street light or the silver white of the moon. It was a pale, grotesque green. A sick light, like the glow from an old television screen. And it was pulsing. It throbbed in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Like a heartbeat, I backed away, bumping into the table. And I smelled something, a faint odor, like ozone after a lightning strike or burning dust. The air in the room felt thick, and it was warm. An unnatural warmth seeping through the cracks. And then, from the corner of the room, came a sound, a hiss. The old CRT television, the thick, convex tube I didn't even know worked, suddenly sparked to life. The screen showed nothing but dancing black and white static. The hissing sound filled the silence, harsh and aggressive. I stood frozen. I should run. I should find a flashlight, but I couldn't move. The static suddenly cut out, replaced by another sound. A long, piercing, high-pitched tone, the sound of the emergency broadcast system. It drilled straight into my skull. I clapped my hands over my ears, but the sound seemed to be coming from inside my own head. Then a voice came on, mechanical, soulless, perfectly synthesized. "This is an emergency action notification." The voice glitched, as if the signal was weak. "This is not a test. An anomalous atmospheric phenomenon is currently in effect across the continental United States." My heart hammered. This was a joke, some elaborate prank. "For your absolute safety, remain indoors. Lock all doors and windows." My hands were shaking. I looked at the front door. Had I locked it? I couldn't remember. "Draw all curtains. Cover all gaps. Avoid all windows. Extinguish all light sources." The green light outside seemed to brighten. It pushed through the curtain, casting trembling shadows on the floor. I repeat, this is the most critical instruction at all. Cuss. Do not look outside. The voice stretched the word outside. Do not look at the moon. A piercing shriek. The TV screen flashed white. Then it went dead. The cabin was silent again. But the silence was worse now. It was filled by the warning and by the sick, pulsing green light. I wasn't breathing. For a second, I thought I was going to be sick. A chemical spill, that had to be it. A train derailment. A factory explosion. Atmospheric phenomenon sounded absurd. And do not look at the moon. That was folklore. I scrambled to the front door, fumbling with the deadbolt. Locked. I checked the back door. Also locked. I ran to every window. The curtains were all drawn, but I could still see the light. It slipped through the smallest cracks. It painted my hands, making my skin look bruised, like a drowning victim's. I huddled in the corner of the living room, as far from the windows as I could get. I hugged my knees, trying to control my breathing. There would be another broadcast, an explanation. The police would come, or the fire department, but there was nothing. Just the pulsing green light and the silence. Then I heard it. A sound from outside, very faint. A shuffling. It didn't sound like an animal. Animals move with purpose. This sound didn't. It was like someone standing still, but moving their feet, like someone treading on dry leaves in place. I held my breath. The sound stopped. I swallowed. My throat was sandpaper. It started again. This time, in a different spot. Closer. By the side of the house, a shuffling, scraping sound, as if dozens of people were standing just outside in the woods, just dragging their feet on the ground. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop from screaming. I was scaring myself. It was just the wind, but there was no wind. The air was thick and still. The green light outside seemed to get warmer. It wasn't cold anymore. It was inviting. A sick curiosity, an irrational urge, began to uncoil in my stomach. I wanted to look. I needed to know what was making that light. I needed to know what was making that sound. Just a peek. Just 1 second. I was slowly getting to my feet, pulled by an invisible string, when the sound came. Knock, knock. A knock on the door. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't panicked. It was gentle, almost polite. I froze. My whole body went cold. The blood drained from my face. No one knew I was here. Not a soul. Knock. Knock. Knock again. A little harder this time. Who's there? My voice cracked. Just a hoarse whisper. Silence. Only the pounding of my heart. Then a voice came from the other side of the door. A voice I knew better than my own. A voice that should have been hundreds of miles away. In an ICU, hooked to a ventilator. Sarah? No. Sarah, open the door. It was Mark's voice. My body reacted before my mind. A wave of relief so strong it almost buckled my knees. He was okay. He was awake. He found me. I lunged for the door. Mark? Mark, is that really you? I put my hand on the lock. Sarah? It's cold. His voice was flat, monotonous, no emotion. It didn't sound like Mark. It sounded like a bad recording. I stopped, my hand on the deadbolt. Mark, what's wrong? I don't understand. It's beautiful out here, Sarah. The voice was right against the door now, like his mouth was pressed to the wood. You need to see. The voice hitched, like a skipping record, struggling. The words, then it repeated, smoother. You need to see. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't Mark. What do you want? He backed away, stumbling over the small rug. The light is beautiful. It makes everything clear. Open the door, Sarah. Go away, I screamed. Get out of here. I know what you did, Sarah. My stomach clenched. All the air was sucked from my lungs. I know you were driving. The voice was still flat, emotionless, but its words were knives. I know you lied to the cops. No, I sobbed. No, I'm sorry. Mark, I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Sarah. A small, toxic spark of hope lit inside me. You do. Of course, just open the door. Look, all the guilt will be gone. No more lies. The guilt, the fear, the loneliness of the past few weeks broke, I cried. I slid to the floor, my back against the wall. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. I wanted it to be over. Look, Sarah, just like us. Us? The polite knocking stopped. It was replaced by scratching, a horrible sound of fingernails, or something sharp, dragging down the wood. Not one person. Many. The scratching came from every direction. The front door, the back door, and from the walls outside the windows. Open up! Mark's voice roared, no longer flat, but distorted, deafening. Look. Accept IT, Sarah. The cabin began to shake. Dishes rattled in the kitchen. The green light outside flared, burning hot. It blasted through the thick curtains, staining the entire room green. I could feel the heat of it on my skin. I screamed, covering my ears, squeezing my eyes shut. The scratching grew frantic. Wood was splintering. And then, in the middle of the chaos, the TV squealed. Its screen flickered violently. It was trying to turn on, fighting against some invisible force. The static image wrestled with the green light flooding the room. And then, the panicked voice tore through. A man's voice. Desperate, shouting over the static. Oh God. Don't listen. They know we're here. It's a trap. They're using. The voice was drowned out by a shriek. Don't believe them. Lock the doors. Stay in the dark. That is not the moon. I repeat. IT is not a loud rip, like something being torn apart. This signal died. The TV screen exploded in a shower of glass and sparks. I was stunned. It was a trap. The thing outside wasn't Mark, and it wasn't here to forgive me. The first warning was fake, or hijacked. The second one was real. The scratching stopped instantly. The cabin fell silent again. A heavy, waiting silence. The green light was still there, pulsing, steady. I realized they didn't need to break in. They just needed me to look. I had to hide. I had to find the basement, a closet with no windows. I scrambled backward, my eyes glued to the vibrating front door. I backed toward the living room window. I needed to cross it to get to the hallway. I took one more step back. My foot hit the small stool. I lost my balance. I fell backward. My arms flailed, grabbing for anything. My fingers snagged the curtain. A loud shredding sound. The fabric tore. My weight brought the entire curtain rod crashing down. The curtain fell away. The green light flooded the room. It wasn't cold. It was warm. A pleasant, enveloping warmth. All the pain, all the fear, all the guilt evaporated. I stood frozen, staring out the window. There was no forest, no trees, no moon watchers. The sky was no longer black. It was a deep, brilliant, rippling blue. And in the center of it, filling my entire vision, was something. It wasn't the moon. It was an eye. A vast, colossal eye with a swirling nebula for a pupil. It contracted with the pulse of the light. It was looking right at me. It was looking through me. It saw the overturned truck. It saw me crawl from the wreckage, leaving Mark behind. It saw me on the highway, lying to the state trooper. It saw the small, petty, cowardly rot inside my soul. It saw everything, and it didn't judge. It just accepted. I let out a breath. A breath I felt like I'd been holding for weeks. The weight was gone. I felt light. I felt clean. I whispered, my voice no longer my own. It's beautiful. I slowly raised my hand, not to shield my eyes. I walked toward the splintered front door, the wood groaning as I put my hand on the knob. I turned it. Thanks for watching until the end. What was your favorite part? Please let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss my future content. Your support is my biggest motivation. Thank you all so much.